All right, good afternoon, everyone. Whoa, they're bringing the lights down for us. So now you know it's time. Get in the mood. How's everyone doing? Last session of the day, the Yammer session, the social session. If you guys want to move up, that's great too. Feel free to, if you're comfortable, feel free to stay where you're at. Thank you for coming to the Yammer session. I can't see any of you now that they have these bright lights on. As you may have heard from some of the previous sessions, we're recording all these sessions. So Naomi and I are going to go through some material here. And then if we could save questions for the end, we'll leave plenty of time. And I also know that we are in between you and the cocktail hour. So that's also a great place to ask questions. In fact, I'm sure the questions get better at Ask the Experts, so with a few drinks. So feel free to ask us questions there. My name is Steve Wynn. I am Yammer product evangelist within the Yammer product team. So I help customers kind of understand our mission and vision for Yammer, where we're headed with it, and also adoption scenarios. I'll bring Naomi up in a little bit. She'll come up at the end and talk about some specific Yammer adoption strategies. So after we kind of go through the roadmap, how do you take some of this away back to your companies and really apply it? Naomi is one of our foremost experts. So I feel like the people that are in this room are the people that are at the forefront of their organizations, really trying to change the way their organizations work. So how many of you have Yammer in place at your organizations today? Good, most of you. Some of you are still trying to decide, or you may be still on the fence. But I think a lot of you are here because you believe that Yammer has a place within your organization. It has a place because it allows people to connect in ways that people have never been able to before. And maybe you've heard stories from other customers of how they've used Yammer to connect their employees, to share information across the organization. And you believe that you can do that within your organizations as well. Now, when I look at the various workloads across Office 365, there's a plethora of them, right? There's lots of choices, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But when I look at it, I have the belief that Yammer has the power to be the most transformative workload within Office 365. Because if you think about it, people generally know how to email. Everyone knows how to email, right? Everyone knows how to calendar for the most part. You know how to share files. You know how to chat and do things like instant messaging. But Yammer is a bit of a different beast, right? What Yammer does is it challenges people to work differently, to work out loud, to work in a more open and transparent way. And that's different. And what we've seen is that when companies really take advantage of that power of openness and transparency and move communications into a more open platform like Yammer, they're really able to transform and change the way their cultures operate. And we've seen this from many of our customers. And this is an example. So TransLink is a bus company in Northern Ireland. And they purchased Office 365 in large part to move to the cloud, move email to the cloud. So they purchased Office 365. Their first foray into the cloud was just moving to Exchange. After a while, they said, there's lots of other things. What else can we take advantage of? They brought in Microsoft Consulting Services to do a session with them to try to understand kind of what are some of the business challenges they're faced with? What are some opportunities to explore and potentially use Office 365 in different ways? They brought in bus drivers, bus engineers, train engineers into a workshop to understand how they operate. And one bus driver said, you know what, I have a problem. The air conditioning units on all our buses are faulty. They're terrible. They come into our bus depot. I fix them, I turn them around, and then another one comes in, I fix, I turn around, and I'm sure this problem is happening at other bus depots. So the traditional way that they had done this was that they had this change modification program that they had to go through. And it took like 4 to 5 weeks in order for this particular engineer to have to submit a change and then get it to scale and push it out to the other bus depots. So they said, okay, let's think about this. Could we do it better on Yammer? So they moved the process to Yammer. So instead of doing this kind of 4 to 5 month change process, these bus drivers now, they take pictures, they take videos, they upload them to Yammer, they say how they fixed the problem. Now they're able to scale the solutions to those problems much quicker across a much broader base of people. And so now they've moved from 3 to 4 months of having to go through this change modification process to about 3 to 4 days to fixing and getting solutions out to out to more people. And so we think this is a great example of how companies are looking to Yammer to replace existing processes to be more efficient and more effective. And not only that, but Yammer has ignited several movements in the workplace. Have any of you heard of the responsive org movement? Okay, Jeff has. So responsive org was born out of a few people kind of sitting around a table saying, we need a different way to work. The way that many organizations are organized today, or they're kind of organized in these hierarchies. And responsive org kind of set out to say, we need a different way. We need companies that are more responsive, more agile, able to kind of learn and move, learn more quickly, and spread information more quickly across the organization. So moving from these kind of siloed hierarchies to more networked hierarchies. And so this responsive org movement started with about 4 or 5 people sitting around a table in San Francisco, and probably in, I think, like 2013 or so. This past year, in September of 2016, they held their first ever responsive org conference in San Francisco, and it brought 1,600 people from around the world, from a bunch of different companies, to talk about kind of the future of work. Again, totally separate from Yammer, but a movement that was kind of born of trying to figure out how do we get companies working in different ways. And then Work Out Loud. Work Out Loud is another movement that I wouldn't say it necessarily started from Yammer, but it was actually, it's probably something that's been accelerated as a result of enterprise social within our organizations. But Working Out Loud is this kind of mantra around getting people to narrate what they're working on, being more open and transparent about the work that they're doing so that other people can either share in that work, contribute to that work. What we found is when people are working out loud and working out loud early, it's an opportunity, the benefits are that you can invite feedback early on, and you can invite other people to help you work on your work in ways that people haven't been able to before. And it's because of these movements that we've seen tremendous growth in Yammer. I mean, we're seeing users that have access to Yammer more than we've ever had before, even before the Microsoft acquisition. So if you had any doubt about the future of Yammer, please rest easy. We're growing. We're going to talk about a lot of the investments that we're making into the platform, but our growth continues to accelerate. And we're hiring. Microsoft is investing in Yammer. We're hiring across the board in engineering and in product and in marketing. We're hiring in almost every group across Yammer. So heavy investment still happening with the Yammer platform. And so Yammer was found with this kind of simple mission to connect people and information and enable better decisions faster. And so Yammer has been around since about 2008. So Yammer's been at this for a while. And what we found is that people will take their kind of, what they know about social from their consumer lives and try to apply it to their work lives. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. And what we've been really striving to do at Yammer is trying to help people make that distinction for how to use enterprise social for the workplace and for good and for productivity, and help make a distinction between how that works in your consumer life. An example of that is if you think about Facebook and you think about Twitter or even LinkedIn, their goal is really to keep you engaged. They want to keep you in that feed. Remember, they're trying to sell you ads, right? They're trying to keep you engaged and keep you always coming back. So when you go into Twitter, you go into LinkedIn or Pinterest or whatever it might be, you get kind of this endless scroll. Have you ever been on LinkedIn and it says the people you may know? I challenge you to get to the end of that. I keep scrolling, and it never gets to the end. But that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep you in the application. And at one time, Yammer we kind of fed into that. But really, we're trying to tailor social to help you be more productive. And I'm going to show you this a little bit later on. But what we're doing now is when you get into a group feed, for example, we show you a message counter of how many messages that have been posted since you've last been there. And so you can view those new messages. Maybe there's 2 or 3 messages. You view those messages, and then you kind of get to the end. It says you're done. You can either move on to view the rest of the messages, move on to the next thing. Again, we're trying to tailor social to help you get work done versus only trying to keep your eyeballs engaged. The other thing that we've learned about how people are using Yammer is, in a lot of cases, we've seen that companies are using Yammer for things on the left-hand side. Maybe use it for a Yam Jam. Everybody know what a Yam Jam is? It's kind of a ask me anything kind of exercise that you can do within Yammer. Maybe use it for company-wide communications. And a lot of times, companies will use it for things on the left-hand side, and that's okay. And what happens is that drives employee morale. But what happens is when companies are only using Yammer for things on the left-hand side, we hear things like, oh, it's this extra place that I have to go, right? It's not something that's built into the way that people work. Versus when companies that we know that have been really successful with Yammer, they have these great business value stories, they're using Yammer for the right-hand side. So very similar to TransLink, where I mentioned they replaced an existing process, where companies and teams are using it for deep, meaningful, multi-way collaboration. They're actually measuring not just clicks and views and posts, but they're actually measuring business outcomes. That's when companies have gotten real tangible business value out of using Yammer. And in fact, it's my belief that when companies are using Yammer for the right-hand side, it actually makes the left-hand side better. Because if you're an internal comms person, the left-hand side is generally kind of the internal comms use cases. If you have eyeballs there and you have people working in Yammer day to day, then you have a better chance of your communications also sticking as well. So a lot of what we're doing and a lot of what I'll show you today is helping people move towards the right-hand side use cases for Yammer. So this is what we'll cover. We talked a little bit about mission and progress. A lot of this time today will be spent doing demos and showing you a little bit of what we built and what's to come. And then we'll talk about future roadmap, kind of future thinking, where we're going. We'll break this up into 3 segments. The first will be around team collaboration, around how do teams get work done within Yammer. We'll talk about our integration with Office 365, and we'll talk about administration and security, some of the things that we've released recently around admin and security. All right, so the first thing, as I mentioned, this is the group within Yammer. A couple things that we've done recently. Group photo samples a color from the image, and then takes that color and puts it into the banner at the top, so it tries to match the banner. Of course, you can always go in and change that as a group admin. I mentioned to you, well, first of all, I'll talk about one of the things that we're doing is we're really trying to improve the inline experience of things like videos, attachments, and pictures. So when you scroll through here, we want to try to make the content here as engaging as possible so that when content is posted here or content is shared here, that other people want to engage with it as well. So you see videos here, we've enlarged videos. You see the nice thumbnail here of the PowerPoint presentation. And then we have an updated layout for pictures in line. So you'll start to see that roll out into your Yammer networks real soon. I'm going to go to this from the front line group. And you notice here I have, let's see, I have the counter here is at 4. And so as I scroll down here, I'm seeing the new messages that I've missed since that time. And you notice as I scroll down, the number decrements. And so again, if I leave this group now and I come back, I'm going to see that I have 3 messages that have been left unread. Again, that's different than the consumer model. If you think about your Facebook notifications, that notification bell, if you have 3 notifications, you click on it, boom, that's cleared, and you don't know how to get back to some of those messages, or you have to click in, you don't know where you've read. So again, we're trying to tailor social to help make sure that these messages are from your coworkers. These are things your coworkers want you to see, and we want to make sure that you have access and you remember to come back to them. So as I scroll down, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom here, and it says you're all caught up. And so now I don't see any more messages. At this point, I can go to all. If I'm curious to know what other messages have been posted, that's my choice. I can go and see the rest of the feed as well. If I have in this case, it's pointing me to all company, but if there are other messages in other groups, I can click that link and it'll take me to the next group for which I have unread messages. All right, so The other thing that we've been working hard on is, so if let's say I respond to this message here, this is a fantastic, okay. All right, so I just typed a message, oh, I made a mistake. Anybody catch my mistake? And I have edit post. How many of you are excited about edit post? Yes, raise your hand. Yeah, we know this is one of our most requested, highest customer requested features. We are actively working on it. We will be releasing, it'll actually roll out in phases. I won't get into the details of it. The first phase will roll out in February, so you'll be able to edit your posts, make mistakes, rejoice. So I could say, oops, I deleted the whole thing. So. And it'll save, and it'll show the versions. So I can go in and I can see the different versions. All those versions will be available in the data export as well. So the other thing that we've done recently is around external groups. So external groups, we previously released the functionality to where you could, within a thread, you can invite somebody external into a thread and have somebody outside be able to just see the contents or participate in a conversation within Yammer. We've recently announced the ability to have a group that has external members in it. So your group can have members from your company and also people from outside. So if you have partners or customers even that you wanted to invite into that group, they can be in here. So you can see in this case, Megan is part of this company, and then Angus is part of Microsoft, and he's a member of this group. So again, great way to be able to invite people in to Yammer and to be able to share files without having to email files and things like that back and forth. So I'm going to go up here to the inbox. Another thing that we've done that was highly requested is mark all as unread. So I think there have been lots of people that have maybe hundreds and hundreds of inbox messages. If you're not familiar with inbox, what inbox is in Yammer is it's the place where it triages all the messages that are most important to you because you've either been @mentioned or you participated in a thread. We triage those messages into your inbox so that you know when there's new posts to those threads. And in some cases, people have said, you know what, I just want to declare inbox 0. I want to declare bankruptcy. I want to hit mark all these as unread, hit yes. And so now your inbox is back to 0. If that tidiness really helps you sleep better at night, we have that now for you. The next thing is around discovery of groups. I'll talk a little bit more I'll talk a little bit more about kind of our integration with Office 365 groups in a little bit. But we're continuing to enhance the discoverability and awareness that Yammer has about the groups that you should be joining or that you should be a part of based off of the people that you work with and the work that is happening around you. So discover more groups provides that view for you. And then we're going to be continuing to use data from the groups infrastructure to inform this discover groups functionality here. All right, so I'm going to skip back here. So some other things that we'll be working on. We are working on additional localization within Yammer. Group level connectors, so if you're familiar with the connectors within Outlook groups, we're going to be bringing those into Yammer as well. And then I talked about a lot of the other things. Improved notifications, so we're looking at improving the push notifications that you get on your mobile device as well. So those are the team collaboration pieces. All right. Okay, Office 365 groups. Let's get into this. Okay, so at Microsoft, we've learned and we've experienced over time that different teams and different people have different ways that they want to collaborate. They have different preferences for the ways that they want to collaborate. And so we want to try to provide those different mechanisms all within one umbrella, all within Office 365. So we know that people need to email. We know that people create content. We know people want to chat. And we also know that people want to have kind of this networked ability via enterprise social, and also the ability to do voice, video, and meetings. So we want to provide all of these tools and all these solutions under one umbrella, under Office 365, and under a connected experience within Office 365. And now the question often comes up. So we're offering all these choices. We offer Outlook groups, we offer Yammer, and we offer Teams. Many of you are probably very interested in what Teams might have to offer. And so you might say, well, where does Yammer fit into that? And my answer to that is, if you think about email and you think about Teams being kind of a chat-based tool, both email and chat have a requirement. That requirement is that I must know who I want to reach out to. So Naomi, if I'm going to send her an email, I have to know that she has this piece of information, or I assume that she has this piece of information. If I'm chatting with a team, or if I'm chatting with a group, I kind of have to know that that group exists, and I reach out to that group. Yammer, on the other hand, is this place where discovery happens across the organization. Yammer is this place where you can create a network effect in ways that a chat platform and an email platform just don't do. And another example is, if you think another example I use in my personal life is, if you think about my personal life, I have email. I also have text messaging. I have WhatsApp. I have Messenger. I have all these other tools for chat as well. But it doesn't mean that there isn't a place in the middle for things like Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, where I have the ability to connect broader beyond my network, right? And I have a belief that Outlook groups, teams, they're great, and I think they'll be great at helping existing teams become stronger. But Yammer really helps you create and get outside of those boundaries and connect with people outside of those teams. So, so when you think about Yammer, think about the distinctive value in it is its ability to create a network across your organization that other tools don't do. It allows for discovery across the organization that siloed tools just don't do today. Yeah. Yep. Load those all into Yammer and start the conversation. Yes. Project manager, you don't have to get PM to be in this group. It's very broad. Right. You got team leads, you got people all over the world, and using Yammer is going to just open it up. That's right. So I'll repeat it for the recording. The gentleman said that they want to move their project management practice, community practice from email to Yammer, because it just opens it up. It opens up a world for people to discover and share in ways that it's very difficult and challenging and cumbersome to do in email. That's a great example. And so, okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to talk through the Office 365 integrated experience. So what's going to happen, if you're familiar with Office 365 groups, Office 365 groups is a construct, it's a membership that sits as a layer across Office 365. And so we are connecting Yammer to that Office 365 groups construct. By doing so, when you create a Yammer group, what's going to happen is over here on the right-hand side, you see you'll get a connected doc library, you'll get a connected SharePoint site, a connected OneNote, and a connected planner. So if you remember earlier on where I was saying, companies that really get value out of Yammer are those that are doing deep, meaningful team collaboration within Yammer. These are all things that we believe will help to continue to enhance a team's ability to be productive within Yammer. So being able to share files, having that SharePoint site, being able to take notes in OneNote, and also having Planner. So let's walk through some of these here. So when I click on the document library, it opens up the library, and you notice it maintained the picture. The membership also carries through. I have the ability now to share this file. So if I'm working on this file, I can hit share. And remember, as a result of having this group created in Azure Active Directory, it's also addressable. So I can say Project Toronto. And there it is. I can select it. I can type my message here, and that gets posted to the Yammer group. So now I can have a discussion about this in the Yammer group. The other piece, actually, that I should mention is that from the file picker here, if I click the file picker, I can select from OneDrive. So all my connected groups are also available here. From the file picker, I can switch between them and be able to select files from this location as well. SharePoint site. So a lot of times customers have said, a lot of times customers will have a SharePoint site, they'll have a connected Yammer group to it, and they'll have the feed connected to it. This is very much in line with what many customers have done. In this case, I have the feed embedded right to the SharePoint site, but of course, this is SharePoint. You could skin it, you could do everything that you know and love from SharePoint. You could have a news feed in here, group information, group news, whatever it might be. Connected OneNote, I love this because Yammer Notes, they were okay, but they had its time, and there wasn't, after you kind of get used to OneNote, it's like, I need more, right? So Yammer Notes, we're going to be phasing out Yammer Notes. I don't have an exact timeline for it, but what we'll be doing is we'll be migrating Yammer Notes, any existing Yammer Notes, to Word documents. So you won't lose anything. They'll just be migrated into a Word document, and then eventually the OneNote integration here will eventually take over. But this is great. I mean, you all know the benefit of OneNote is being able to access OneNote from your mobile device or any other, from a tablet or any other computer. So now my team notes are available anywhere I'm at, not just within Yammer, which Yammer Notes was kind of one of the deficiencies there. So I'm really excited about the OneNote integration here. And then Planner, excuse me. People have often said, it'd be great to be able to connect tasks and to be able to manage tasks associated with the Yammer groups. So now you get the Planner group. The Planner group with that as well. One thing that you might note that's missing is Calendar. That is on our roadmap. It won't ship in our first phase of the Office Groups integration, but we do have it on our roadmap. It will be there. This will start to ship starting in February sometime. I don't have an exact date, but the first phase will be any new Yammer groups you create will be connected groups experiences. Next phase, we'll go back and we'll figure out how to connect up legacy Yammer groups and give those the connected experience as well. That'll happen later on in other phases. All right, so switch back. So we're really excited about the integration with Office 365. We hope you guys are too. I know it's something that people have been wanting for a long time. So we look forward to that being released next month. There are a couple other things that we'll be working on. All right, admin and security. So let's see, let me go back here to Yammer. So one of the things that we recently did was we made Yammer available in all Office 365 tenants. So you don't need to do anything to actually turn Yammer on. Yammer is on by default in all tenants. There are some things that you can do within Yammer to disable if you need to. One thing that you'll probably want to do is enforce Office 365 identity, so that way you have single identity, single login across all of Office 365. And then the other thing that some people might do is block Office 365 users without Yammer licenses. So if you check that box and a user does not have a Yammer license, when they log in, they won't be able to log in, essentially. So what you can do, obviously you can do this in a PowerShell script, but I'm going to show you. You can go to a user here, manage their license. You can go to Adele. And down here, I see Yammer Enterprise, so I can turn her off. So that's how you would disable the license for the user. Of course, I'm not going to do that for Adele. I want her to have all the Yammer goodness, but that's how you would do it. The other piece here is around domains. So it used to be this cumbersome process. If you had multiple Yammer domains, you had to call into the service desk and you had to go through all these steps to do it. But now we've made it easier. You can go into the admin center here, click on the domains, and then click add domains, and you're all set. Last thing here is the usage reports. Within Office 365, maybe you know that you can go in as admins and be able to see the usage across all the workloads. You see here you have Yammer, and you can see number of posts, reads, and likes. You can export this data. We are working on a Power BI adoption content pack. I think it's going to be released sometime in February as well. That'll get much more granular than this, so it'll also be available for group administrators. I know that's a common request for a lot of folks, is to be able to have this data available to group administrators. Currently, it requires you to be an Office 365 administrator in order to get to this information. But the Power BI content pack will be available so that you can make some of this data available to your group administrators so that they can get some insights into how things are progressing within their specific groups. Additionally, you can always do data exports from within Yammer. So you could do the data export, massage it, do whatever you need, and get a lot of data from that as well. But these are just some of the out-of-the-box ways to get access to data within Yammer. All right. I'm flying right through this stuff. Okay, future roadmap. So these are things that, when we talk about future roadmap, some of these projects are staffed, meaning they're imminent, they're probably going to be coming soon, and some of these things are still kind of a glimmer down the road. We're not sure when they'll ship or when we'll be able to work on them yet. I'll try to make a distinction of them as we go through. Most of the things that I'll talk about that I have specific slides for are things that we're actively working on. So message improvements. So we're working on things like rich text and making things bold and being able to just make elements within your post stand out. Move posts. We've heard from customers the need to, or the desire to be able to move posts. So, a lot of times there's lots of traffic that happens in a group or let's say all company, and as a community manager you want to move a message from one group to another. So we're looking at the ability to move posts. Pinned or highlighted reply. People have always wanted to be able to say, this is the best answer, this is the right answer. Sometimes that's difficult to do, but we're going to offer an ability to pin or highlight a reply. And then we're looking at real-time typing indicators, which in some aspect kind of exists today within Yammer. We also want to try to make the groups much more visually engaging. So we're playing around with some designs to where you'll be able to have a group cover photo. So groups will be able to kind of brand and have even more of a sense of identity that they can use visually with their groups. So some pretty cool stuff we're doing with that. That'll happen in phases. I think initially you're going to be able to put kind of a pattern where you see that blue header area there. Then eventually we'll move towards having a group photo. Direct messaging. We're moving away from. We recently made an announcement where we're going to be moving the Online Now or the Yammer chat functionality. We're going to be removing that from Yammer and moving it to what we call private conversations. And so we'll have a bit of a different look and feel to the kind of private messaging experience within Yammer, and we're going to be removing the Online Now functionality. And part of the reason we're doing that is because we're trying to make way for the Skype for Business integration with Yammer. I'll show that in just a second. Also, we're playing around with some new onboarding experience. Like I said, many of our, because Yammer is available to everybody now, many of our users are coming in through the Waffle, and we want to make sure that people have a good onboarding experience. So this is just an example of a Yammer bot that we're experimenting with. Bots, as you know, are quite popular, even within, you see the T-bot within Teams. So we're experimenting with how a bot might help acclimate a new user to the environment and help them feel comfortable, guide them to the right groups, and use Yammer in the best way possible. So from an Office 365 roadmap perspective, team calendars. Like I said, it's not going to be available right away, but we do plan to include the calendar integration as well. And then escalating the Skype for Business. This has also been something that's been on the radar for us, and something that I know that customers have been needing and wanting for a long time. So it's a little bit hard to see in some of these screenshots, but essentially you'd be able to hover over somebody's name, see their presence indicator light up, and then be able to connect with them via voice or video right from within the Yammer interface. So we're excited about this. This is going to come hopefully really, really, really soon. And then from an admin and security standpoint, we have Office 365 audit logging. I mentioned the Power BI reports. And then we're also looking at the ability to customize the all company group. So we've heard from customers the desire to be able to go into all company and to change the logo, for example, or to just stylize the all company feed a little bit better so that it feels more like their own. So we'll be looking into that. So this is just a snapshot here of all of the things that we have kind of coming up. And if there's something that you feel like is burning or pressing at your organization, feel free to come up afterwards and we can talk about that. And then I'd like to bring up Naomi. Naomi, like I said, is one of our foremost experts in the field of driving adoption of technology, understanding business value. She's got some great examples of how to drive Yammer adoption in a great way of telling stories. So I'm going to bring her up and she'll take it away.
Great, I get the hard part, right? How do we make all of this successful inside of our organizations, right? That's really the challenge, I think, from a network perspective. So there's a couple of things that I want to share with you. I have some examples here of some companies that we've worked with. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, of course, but it's really sort of looking at the different approaches that people have taken inside of their organizations. So there's kind of three approaches that people really look at when they're implementing Yammer. This is really, in fact, an enterprise social network, right? We're connecting people inside of your organization in a different way. And so what works inside of your company is really what works inside of your company, right? There is no one size fits all. There is no one way that is the best way to approach implementing Yammer. There are basically three types of implementations, and that's what I'm covering here. So the first off is really that kind of big bang explosion. Really, you're going to implement Yammer. Maybe you've got executive sponsorship inside of your organization. Somebody has said, go forth, implement Yammer, right? So I'm sure there's a few folks that have had that experience inside of the organization. And for there, we're really looking at a lot of different areas that have to come together to make that work. We really need to look at having a champions program inside of the organization. And the reason for that is to have that kind of mentorship, to have that experience when you enter Yammer, that there are folks that can help you and guide you along your way, but also how things work inside of your company. So champions are really there. We often call them Yambassadors to really help smooth the path for others coming forward. But it's also a great way to get the communities engaged inside of your organization. One of the aspects inside of Yammer is that a lot of people get excited about, okay, I want to be the first person, right? I want to be the change agent. If you've got those users inside of your companies right now, this is a great way to sort of get them involved. Run a champions program, have them pioneer and blaze the trails for people, and then really look at what they can do to go forward inside of your organization. The next thing really around this, if again on a big bang type of implementation, is you're really looking at engaging all of those stakeholders across your community. And so that means the different business units, it means looking at the different areas inside of your organization of who's going to be infected by this change. And so I use the word infected correctly because it's really it's a viral adoption mechanism that happens inside of Yammer. And so, you know, your proof of concept, your idea of, okay, we're going to deploy this to some test users, very quickly, basically, that proof of concept becomes production, right? And that viral adoption method happens inside of the organization. So we want to be prepared for those kind of areas. Really thinking about having a playbook in place. We want to interview those stakeholders, understand what they want to drive out of an implementation, and then really understand what's going forward in terms of the metrics and the stages of growth that you're expecting inside of your company. So one of the things I want to mention with Yammer is really looking at kind of the adoption numbers can be a little bit of a trick at first. So oftentimes we focus on the amount of users, right, that we have inside of our network. And what we really want to think about is as we mature with our use of a network, it's not really just about the number of users or the pure qualitative metrics. It really understands a little bit about the quantitative metrics going forward as well. So success in Yammer is not always just about the numbers of people or the numbers of posts. It's about the success stories that come out of being able to use Yammer. And so we really want to think about that. Like, what does that mean inside of your company? What change are you trying to activate as part of your organization? So you think about having maybe hashtag YamWins inside of your company is a great way to do it. Think about asking your champions to go through when there's a successful example of how Yammer is being used. Maybe two folks came together as a connection. Maybe a new piece of content was reused in a different scenario inside of your business. Those kind of areas is really a great way to be able to stimulate those YamWins and then collect those wins together. We want to look for evidence of success in terms of your network. So even if you're starting from a very small example, you want to think about how do we collect these successes along the way and then understand how the impact across the organization is coming forward. So the second scenario that I have here is really looking at kind of that long fuse type of example. So in this case, this was a very large company, 110,000 folks, and they're really basically IT was driving that adoption. I know that a lot of you folks in the audience are really part of IT right now, so it's awesome. IT, drivers, yes, go, it's amazing. So when we get that inside of the company, we can really think about what is it that we're doing from a grassroots perspective inside of our organization. So IT is leading the way in this case. Basically, they're helping to pioneer that trail. And some of that is oftentimes because IT is being driven to do a lot more agile activities inside of the company and understand what's going on at a much broader scale than it was before. And so when we think about that, we want to think about maybe stakeholder engagement, but it's also deploying communities that help to support all the other things that you've learned about today. So if you've been to all the Office 365 sessions, if you've been to Windows 10 sessions, you've been to Azure sessions today, think about having communities of practice or communities of interest inside of your organization to get those discussions stimulated inside of your company. Just as the gentleman gave the example earlier in terms of project management, we really want to think about what communities of practice, what things transcend some of those organizational barriers, whether it's roles, whether it's specific things that you're looking to implement inside of your company. Maybe you're implementing a new system, could be ERP system or an HR system. How do I get all of those people together and having a conversation, right? So Yammer is a fantastic way to do this. And as IT, it makes our lives a lot easier, right? Because we have basically a peer-to-peer support community that we're creating inside of the organization. And that's really a great way for end users to get some of the training they need. The third example here is really around, I call it the tinderbox example, because it's really the catalyst that goes on inside of our companies. So if you're in a high growth area, if you're in a software company yourselves, if you're a Microsoft partner even, or you're looking at how to sort of grow the advanced applications area inside of your company, this might be a relevant phone for you. For them, it was really about the kind of the ADD that goes on with tooling inside of your companies. I don't know if you have this inside of your organizations right now, but that was a company where every tool that came out, they wanted to try it, right? And so it's very difficult sometimes to control those kind of users, right? As IT, we're trying to put a little bit of barrier there and say, hey, this is not a corporate mandated system. We want to make sure we're hitting the security and compliance drivers that are very important inside of our companies, but we also want to be able to have a networked effect inside of the organization. And so really using Yammer there can actually help a lot with those kind of ADD kind of situations. So if you have the bright, shiny problem inside of your company, then Yammer is a great way to basically have that network and have some of that conversation there, especially with the new connected groups experience. So looking at some of the custom integrations that are available, the Yammer API is available there. So the REST API is easily extensible. We've even talked about, lots of other scenarios where other implementations can feed into Yammer. I know I talked earlier to Christy, who was talking about, they're using Salesforce in their organization, and with Microsoft Flow, which is also part of Office 365, you can push opportunities from Salesforce to post automatically into Yammer, right? It's a great way to have congruence with your business process and to get information from other systems posting inside of Yammer. So it's kind of thinking about all of the different areas and making Yammer that kind of hub to connect conversations, communities, and data across your organization. So those are kind of the three types of approaches, really, for adoption inside of Yammer. And then I just wanted to sort of talk about the productivity a little bit, because we're often used to this inside of our organizations, and Steve referenced it earlier in terms of the growls that we're seeing inside of companies. We talk about responsiveness. Now, we've been in IT probably for a long time, right? I don't see any too many millennials in our audience here today. But it's really looking at sort of what we're trying to drive with our organizations. So I talk about collaboration as a culture, as basically being a goal, right, for our organizations. It's something we want to be in the cultural DNA of our organizations. Now, oftentimes we might have implemented IT tools in the past that actually have had this goal, but we've stated that as kind of the big vision for what we wanted inside of the organization, but we really didn't drill down to understand what that meant inside of our companies, right? So doing better collaboration is a goal, it's an aspirational thing, right? It's something we want built into our companies, but what we really think about inside of our organizations is understanding that productivity is actually a business process. Right? So when we think about knowledge working inside of our organizations, that's what's happening in our companies right now. Knowledge workers are beginning metrics, right? They're actually having productivity metrics associated with them. I'm sure you've been to some of the other sessions today in Office 365 around My Analytics and understanding how time is being spent in the organization, how people are prioritizing things different. And so we really want to think about that from an imperative inside of our company. So having better collaboration as a big airy-fairy goal is okay, right, in some areas. But what we really think about is productivity as a business process. What is it that you can do inside of your company? Where do you need better information? Where do you need faster connectivity to that information? Where do you need other information from other parts of the organization? That's the network, that's the collaboration network that you're really empowering with Yammer. And so when we think about that imperative, it's really important to understand what it is that we're doing inside of our own IT organizations as well. So a few things I wanted to mention here. So I think the majority of you are in the IT organization. I just want to check, yes, identify that, yes. Come on, so it's good. And so when we talk about technologies inside of our companies, it's really about deploying these new technologies as we come together. So as I mentioned, you've got Windows 10 that you may be deploying inside of your organization. You've got Office 365. You're deploying Azure. Maybe you're looking at new and different ways that you can inspire this inside of your companies. And so thinking about deploying technology now is really about implementing communities inside of your organization. And that might be a very unfamiliar term for IT, right? It's like, well, we're used to having control, we're used to having an engineering project around, we're gonna have this deployment, and we have, enormous Gantt charts for putting things out there as a project timeline. But really what we wanna do is understand what it is that our end users want to drive out of that specific implementation. Because successful implementation, successful moving to production is not just deploying it to somebody's desktop or deploying it to a cloud service, right? That's just bread and butter these days inside of IT, right? And so what happens is we get to be that utility provider, right? And so you don't know the power company's there until the power doesn't work, right? And that's what's happening with IT. But what we actually need to understand is, right, if we're going to deploy these types of technologies, it's really about developing a community around them. So all of the Power BI analysts inside of your organization, right? We want to think about that inside of our companies. IT does not need to be an expert on Power BI. We need to be an expert on how to secure it, how to collaborate with it, where the data is living, those kinds of things, right? Owning that service change inside of the organization. What we don't need to be an expert on is basically how do people use it, right? So what we want to do is enable those communities inside of our organizations. And there are lots of different ways to do that. Obviously, we talked earlier today, you've seen a presentation, I'm sure, about Fast Track inside of Office 365. Again, Yammer is a fantastic place to have those conversations, right? We're going to put these communities together inside of our organization, and then we're going to give some of those champions early access to that feature set, and then we're able to actually then cascade that through the organization. It takes pressure off of the help desk, it takes pressure off of IT, and you're partnering with the business to deliver the functionality they really, really want. And you're making those connections across the business. So all the different business analysts, just like the example, all the different project managers coming together, right? And you're deploying technologies alongside a community of practice that's actually growing inside of your company. Okay, so I'm going to talk about adoption. Change starts from within, right? So let's talk about specifically inside of IT what it is that we can do. So there's a few things here, and I want to sort of correlate these with kind of those approaches that I talked about at the beginning. So the first thing really here is looking at the Big Bang approach. So if you're something that you're trying to drive to inside of IT, maybe you want to look at developing a proof of concept around Yammer, maybe that's one of the areas that you're experimenting with inside of Office 365, this is a great place to start. We want to get executive sponsorship. That is the number one thing I'm going to ask you to do, right? Go to your CIO, go to your CTOs, go to your group level managers really, and get buy-in for this process. The reason for that is, again, we've been traditionally very siloed in IT. And now the world of the cloud has come and has broken up a lot of those silos, or is forcing a lot of those silos to adapt. And the reason I say that is because before you used to be a SQL administrator or a SharePoint administrator, or you did desktop applications, or you did cloud applications, or you did special applications, right? Or you did infrastructure, right? However, networking, all those kinds of things. So all of those things were very segmented inside of IT. And now we have more overlap, right? More than ever, right? It's kind of one of those jokes I always say, you know, I got into IT because I like working with computers, right? Now our job has never been more about people, right? So it's kind of a cruel joke in a way. I wanted to specialize in technology, but you wind up actually specializing in people because it's understanding these connections inside of our organization now. So as we think about communities inside of IT, one of the things we're doing is increasing that skill set. That skill set is broadening. You're no longer just a desktop applications expert or a SQL expert. You have to know something about AD. You have to know something about Office 365 groups. If you're in Windows, you have to know something about the hardware and the software and how those things are all interacting and how that's working from a security and compliance perspective. So driving that kind of change, so in a Big Bang implementation for IT, we really want to understand what are those, again, those communities of interest that need to come together, but we also need to understand what it is we want to do from a use case perspective. So the next things I would suggest in this kind of area is looking at where that workload demand is inside of IT, the things that are traditionally hard to scale, or maybe you've already outsourced some of these activities inside of your organization. So think about the support cases, think about help desk updates, think about what else you could do from a training, onboarding, provisioning, those kinds of activities. So these are great places to have, again, communities inside of your organization. Think about communities of practice there. How do you scale updates to the help desk when a new product feature comes down from Office 365, right? Just today, I got all these notifications. PowerPoint now supports blah, blah, blah. Word now supports blah, 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 right? And you know there's going to be a query to the help desk about this, right? How do you make sure that all of those help desk representatives know how this works inside of the organization? How do you do maybe ticketing even inside of Yammer? There's a couple of customers we've seen that are doing ticketing inside of Yammer. People post in a specific group, and then they actually automatically get assigned a ticket number, and it populates a list inside of SharePoint so that you can see if people have responded to those posts, right? Think about different ways of interacting with our communities and our end user populations as part of it. The other aspect is also provisioning. So as you're onboarding new people inside of the company or you're provisioning resources in a different way, this is, again, a great place to do it. So there's kind of some of the things to think about from a business process perspective if we're going for the kind of the Big Bang implementation. Eventually, we want to always get to that kind of right side of conversations that Steve mentioned earlier. We have that pillar kind of diagram that has the left side column and the right side column. We're really looking at how you can have meaningful conversations and looking at how you can put these into business process. Conversation in a vacuum is no use to anybody, right? It's all about how do I make that connection across the community and across my organization. So let's look at the long fuse effort, which is kind of the grassroots type of effort inside of our IT. So if it's something you're trying to experiment with right now, maybe you've switched it on. It's like, I have no idea what this Yammer thing is. Just came with Office 365, right? I see smiles, so I know it's happening, right? So it's all good. So if you have that kind of area, the important thing here is to identify those folks who are really excited and motivated and want to try something new, right? And you know who those people are. You know they have the iPhone 7s or whatever, right? They have the new shiny. They want to try the new tool, right? We want to harness some of that energy and start to get them engaged. So if there's a specific team, maybe there's an application support group that is finding that their existing needs are not met because they have to work with external vendors, or they have to work with other partners, or there's customers that are difficult to reach that way. So we can actually think about creating a group on Yammer just for them. And there it's really important to understand what you're aiming with that group, right? It's really thinking about what's the goal of this communication. What is it? What decision, what information are we doing that's actually going to get better because of a network structure? We have to think very carefully about this because, again, otherwise it becomes just a mishmash of collaboration. People are just posting anywhere, and they don't really understand how to set those things up initially. So we want to start small, start with a very specific team and a goal in mind, and then think about how we're going to expand that group up. And so once we get some folks that are motivated, the biggest challenge we have inside of IT oftentimes is to say, well, how do we use it, right? How are we doing that inside of our company already? So if you can find a couple of examples inside of IT where this is a useful tool, then you can use those as success stories to keep mirroring inside of the organization and then grow those things bigger, maybe into a business process as you get different groups connected together. So I'd really encourage you to think about that. I know this is how it usually starts in IT, and oftentimes this is just a great place because we need to know how to use this stuff, right? Our users are going to do it anyway, so we need to know how to use this stuff. Not to be afraid of this change, but to really think about embracing and adapting around it. So we want to think about the last example here is really around thinking about advanced applications maybe. So sometimes you have a Catalyst type of a group inside of your company that's looking at advanced applications. And so maybe it's the people who are sort of IT business partners. Maybe there's some growth areas inside of your company. Maybe it's something that you're a more advanced application that your company's even piloting or working with partners with. And so this is a good place to use Yammer. I have often been surprised in even the oil and gas industry. I live in Texas, and it's been surprising to me that a quite traditionally stodgy kind of industry has been one of the easiest uptakes in terms of using the external groups functionality that Steve was mentioning earlier. So if you're in an area where provisioning another intranet site just for a specific group of people or a team of people that need to come together that include external vendors, external partners, if you're doing research projects, those kinds of things where you're working with universities and you want to have a collaboration group for them, the external networks is a great way to do in external groups inside of Yammer. And so you can actually come together in a different way, have those collaboration be secure just within that group. That way, all of that stuff, the security, the compliance, all the fantastic features that we have inside of Yammer for HIPAA compliance, EU model clauses, all this other great stuff, that all of those things are maintained inside of an external group. And that way, your organization has control of the collaboration, what's going on, right? All of the content that's being stored there, it's all compliant, secure, but it's a great way to be able to extend a technology that's basically already outside of our firewalls, right? So it's already there, it's ready to be used with external folks. So it's kind of a good way to think about that. The other area I'd suggest is to use this as kind of a customer intimacy inside of your organization. And the reason I say that is if you're already deploying Yammer, it's a great way to kind of learn about what the business thinks is important, right? Where is the business going? What are those conversations there? So one of the privileged positions we have inside of IT is really the ability to listen, right, to what's going on. Because before it took a lot of interviewing, right? We have to go to the business folks and ask them and say, what's important to you? Like, where do you want to go? And sometimes that conversation is a little bit difficult. If you're in IT, you feel like you're a little bit on the back foot with understanding where those needs are going. And the same thing with external customers. If you're a Microsoft partner, you can use the external networks feature of Yammer to actually hive off a separate network altogether and actually have those conversations there. So it's kind of the learning, the listening, and understanding that. All right, so to wrap up for the next 10 minutes or so, I have a few slides here to talk about, kind of the do's and don'ts, right? Because oftentimes it's more important to learn from the fails than it is to learn from the success. And so I wanted to make sure that we go through basically what you should not do, right? So it's an important one here. So I have a few things here just to talk about. So, please don't just throw it out there and see what happens. And so I kind of think this is kind of what you're going to get if you just see what happens, this kind of approach. It's either crickets, nobody does anything, nobody says anything, and is kind of dead on arrival. Or you get basically a country music hit. And by that, I mean you get a lot of success at the beginning, and then things just go really, really badly, right? Inside of like the story just evolves to nothing. So we don't want to do that, right? Don't be there. Don't Garth Brooke this. We really want to think about what it is when we're turning Yammer on, and we're going to sort of use that inside of our organization. We make the decision to use it. Try an approach, right? If it's a grassroots thing, or we're just trying it for a small team, have a purpose when we're thinking about this, right? It's not just collaboration. It's that big fuzzy thing, right? It's a productivity and it's a business process inside of our companies, and we should manage it as such. The other aspect, especially if we're in IT, is to sometimes we just ostrich this, right? If I just put my head in the ground, maybe this thing will go away, right? And it seems like a big vulnerability, or it seems like an issue inside of your companies. I'm sure you guys have come across this too, right? Please don't do that, okay? It's not going to go away. It's there. Yammer is one of the 5 core services inside of Office 365. As Steve mentioned, it's on by default now inside of your companies, and you really want to think about, okay, I can really use this collaboration network inside of my company too. So we don't want to think about also that, you know, if from a business perspective, we want to make assumption that IT actually knows about it, which is important, because oftentimes, you know, people will start using it and then tell IT afterwards, and that's not a good solution either. Okay, the third one is probably the most important thing when you are starting your Yammer network, and I will hammer on about this at length. The reason for this is there is a functionality inside of Yammer that allows you to have a usage policy, right? So when you first click to join into the network, and you can't do anything on the network unless you have a usage policy. And I say this even if you're doing this for grassroots, even if you're doing this for your very first time, and you're just playing with it and switching it on, please put in place a usage policy. And you can just copy and paste stuff. If you have terms on your intranet already, this could be a good place to use it. The reason I say this is because we want to start from the get-go. As I mentioned, proof of concept goes to production very, very quickly in a viral network technology, right? You want to make sure we set the guidelines early, right? And the reason for this is, again, we want to say, what is a good use of Yammer inside of our organization? Are you going to allow, you know, social clubs to be on there? Are you going to allow, you know, sporting, you know, people inside of your organization who run, or maybe they run around your campus or that kind of stuff, right? Are you going to allow those kinds of things? Or are you going to strictly keep these about work topics, right? Is this only for that? You need to make that decision. You really do. And then populate that usage policy as part of it, because it's very hard, right? You cannot shut the barn door after the horse is already bolted in this case, right? Back to my country music thing here. But it's really important to extend about that, because we want to understand what's a good use of Yammer inside of our companies. It also helps to reinforce if you have to deal with legal and compliance later on and say, okay, we're not sure about these things. So you need to understand, if you have union workers inside of your organization, is it something you're going to allow to have union groups on there? Are you going to allow, you know, religious study groups, right? Are people allowed to say Merry Christmas, right? Those kinds of things. You have to understand that for your organization and put that very clearly in the usage policy. And the reason for that is, again, every user is going to accept that. There's guidelines that you will go back to and refer, and then as a community be able to say, okay, if somebody starts up a group that you're not happy with, you can say, okay, this is not something that we allowed, and hey, there's another technology you can use for that, or maybe you should do that on your own time, etc. So it's just very important, make sure those things are up front on there. Okay, so when we're starting it out, maybe you're at this kind of this stage here. We really want to think about, you know, trying it out and sort of broadening it across our organizations. There's a few tips that I have here. So inclusiveness is part of Yammer. This is a peer-to-peer governed technology. It's a little bit scary because of that, right? Because it's a peer-to-peer governance. Mostly the inclusiveness that you're looking for in this technology, the more value there is inside of the company, is because you have the most people invited and using it. But one of the things is, in this kind of an open forum, this is really like sending, you know, you could possibly send an email to the whole company, right? And so this is actually what's going on inside of Yammer. If you have transparent discussions in there, you have public groups in Yammer, technically anybody in the organization could go and look at those things. So we think it's a little scary, right? It's like, ooh, right? The first reaction is to be scared. You should not be scared of this, right? Transparency is generally a good thing. Again, that's why we have a strong usage policy, and we've put boundaries on how people are using it. But the governance structure that's inside of Yammer is basically a peer-to-peer structure. That's why I talk a lot about at the beginning in terms of the champions programs, having ambassadors, having stakeholders involved, because the reason for that is if we're governing some of those discussions, we want to set those behaviors early inside of our company. So we understand, like, is it appropriate to say certain things or don't make jokes and that kind of stuff, right? Those behaviors very quickly get learned. And in all the organizations, I've deployed Yammer to more than 1 million users at this point, and I've never had a problem with people saying, what people worry about is somebody, cursing on Yammer, they've, put inappropriate messaging or something else there. I've never had an issue with this. And so even at the world's largest organizations, this doesn't happen because, again, peer-to-peer is very interesting, that governance, that behavior inside of your organization, but it's also understanding that everybody can see it. So whatever you post in Yammer in a public group, you might as well just stand in the foyer of the company, right, and shout loud things, right, because it's about the same thing. So you have to have that mentality. And so most of the time, we're actually trying to include people, right? We're trying to get people to say something on there because they might be a little scared at first because it's like, technically, anybody could see what I'm posting, right? So sometimes they want to post, sometimes they don't, okay? So we want to make sure that it's influencing and we're guiding a network, right? Again, it's a different technology from that perspective. And then we're not thinking about command and control and trying to lock down everything as part of that. So the other aspect of this is, we want to incentivize people to come out there and post and get this stuff out there, right? And so one of the things we do, oftentimes in companies is say, okay, well, if we give gift cards for like how many, posts that you're going to do, or like incentivize people to have different ideas, okay? Please don't incentivize for things that are not connected to the network. And the reason I say this is because people will do an inordinate amount of posting for a Starbucks gift card. It is unbelievable, right, what I've seen. I see companies, largest companies in the world, be highly motivated about getting a t-shirt or whatever it is, right? So some swag that's there, okay? Please don't do that. Please have them work to align to the goals that you want inside of your network. So if you're trying to do safety, right, trying to make maybe an organizational tenet that's an established thing inside of your company. So health, safety, and environment, right, very boring stuff, right, that we're all familiar with inside of our organizations. Maybe we can add something about the most recent safety campaign. Maybe we want to have people contribute conversations inside of our organization to say, this is how this safety moment came together for me. Or maybe we want to have collaboration with our CEO, right? Maybe we have a CEO connections group, for example, and talk about how we can talk to the CEO and maybe raise some issues that we think are important. We want to incentivize for seeing like popularity. We want to incentivize for praise, for exposure, those kind of recognition rewards inside of Yammer. Please don't give gift cards, right? Because people just drift off. I've seen the tail of growth and adoption, and it doesn't do that. So the only thing they'll do basically is never post again for free on your network. The other aspect to this is sometimes we can get hung up on analyzing what's going on inside of our network instead of engaging. I've seen a lot of people who are starters inside of the community. Maybe they started as a group manager, maybe they've become a group community manager, and they think, well, if only I could just understand what all of the things are going on inside of my company. And you need to know that stuff. You need to know the metrics. You need to understand how many people are posting, what's going on, how many groups, all that kind of stuff. And you get a lot of that data from the Office 365 usage reports now. But we don't want to spend so much time analyzing that we forget to engage in our network, right? So at a successful post, right, there's lots of information out there in terms of what a successful post is made of, what a successful group is made of. And so oftentimes it's about engagement and stimulation over and over and over again. And people oftentimes can spend too much time looking at metrics and measures and trying to compute all kinds of stuff that really isn't relevant, right? You know if you're being successful. It's a feeling, right? It's a feeling with Yammer inside of your network, right? You know when you're collaborating, you know when things are happening at the speed of business, basically, inside of your company. So don't worry too much about those metrics either. Okay, just to finish up, I think that's kind of some of the issues that we have in terms of scaling up and understanding what we shouldn't do when we're scaling up. The question here is oftentimes, what happens when it stops being new and shiny inside of my company, right? So I've seen this at a number of customers. One of the chemicals companies that I'd worked with was actually one where, they scaled up to a certain amount and it was like new and shiny and the CEO was very excited about it and there was lots and lots of energy. And then after, the big announcement, a couple months after, you see this kind of, slow off of growth, right? You have to keep marketing the network, the community, whatever it is that you're using with Yammer for. And the reason for that, I was saying at the beginning, we want to curate success. We want to understand Yam wins inside of our company, right? We want to keep having those success stories and bringing them forward. The reason for that, it moves the conversation forward inside of your company. So maybe you can think about using this as a business process tool or other meaningful conversations inside of your company, but it also helps to curate that success going forward. You know, it's really about understanding what the win is all the time with Yammer and keep that marketing going there. The other aspect to this is sometimes, you know, we get stuck in that DeLorean time machine of it works really well in this business unit, but we haven't been able to port it anywhere else inside of the company. And so we have to think about, again, it's about capturing success there. It's about understanding the use cases and basically, you know, abstracting from some of those use cases and saying this is how it works inside of this particular part of the organization and help to transport that experience to another place, right? And so you have to really think about that from a community management perspective to make sure that it's growing and scaling across the company. And then the last thing I really want to emphasize here is kind of the time and resources. Yammer is a super simple technology to deploy, right? So if deploying is our goal, we've already got switched on in Office 365, so great job, you already did, right? But, right, what really comes down to it is understanding as we scale up across our organization, we're gonna need a community management probably as part of it, depending on the size of your company and your goals. You're gonna need maybe a dedicated person there. You're gonna need a champions network, and you're gonna incentivize those people to have the great behaviors. We're gonna incentivize them to post and to guide other users. So we don't wanna underestimate in the long term, right? You don't need it when you first start up. You could do a grassroots effort, but if we're really going to scale up and go across the entire organization, then we really do have to have some of those dedicated resources as part of it. Okay, I know we have just a couple of seconds left, so I wondered if Steve would like to finish us off. That would be great.
Thank you, Naomi. So we'll leave the rest of the time for questions. I think we're close to the end of time, but feel free to. Well, we went through all of our stuff, all of our topics and discussions. So please, we welcome you to come up and ask any questions you might have. Thank you for coming today. Enjoy the rest of the conference.